Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. What is next for Michigan? As a Michigan fan myself, this has been the question I've been asking really for the last 12 hours. Now, the big question here is who's going to be the next head coach? I would argue that although that's a really important conversation, and we're going to have that conversation plenty over the next couple of days and weeks, maybe the most important question we need answered is who's going to be the decision makers, right? You talk about hiring someone like Kalen DeBoer, like convincing Kalen DeBoer to leave Alabama and come to Michigan. If you want that to happen, you have to have your ducks in a row from an administration standpoint. Like you look at athletic director Ward Manuel, what's the future of Ward Manuel? Like, yes, he's done some good things. I know he's a polarizing figure amongst a lot of Michigan fans, done some good things, has also been a part of some really damn bad things leading this Michigan athletic department. Is he going to be making that decision? I'll say this. Michigan's got to get their ducks in a row. They have to have all the important decision makers. That's administration, that's the donors, that's the boosters. We got to all be pulling in the same direction. And if we can't get there, it's going to be really tough to convince a coach like Kalen DeBoer to leave Alabama and come to Michigan. Like one of my bigger question marks that I am monitoring over the next 48 hours is who's going to be leading the charge? Who's going to be making the big boy decisions? And are we all on the same page? That's number one. Now, some other storylines here is I think there are some names that you have to make them say no. Like I'm not promising you call a guy like Coach Kurt Signetti, make him say no to you. You do the same thing with Kalen DeBoer. You say the same thing for maybe even a Steve Sarkisian at Texas. Like there are some names that look, they ain't leaving, right? Ryan Day ain't leaving Ohio State. Kirby Smart ain't leaving Georgia. Dan Lanning probably ain't leaving Oregon. There are also a lot of names that probably aren't leaving. But you probably want to say and have them say no before you move on. There are some sneaky good candidates that I want to offer here on a Thursday morning. I also want to talk about player retention and what that looks like. When I look at Michigan, we'll get into it a little bit more. You want to go make a home run hire. I think you have to sell the next head coach that looked at this roster is ready made for you to win in 2026. And in a lot of ways, it is. We'll get into that as well. Laundry list of topics to get into. There are plenty of different lenses that you can look at this situation from. To the Michigan fans, number one, appreciate you guys. Many of the Michigan fans have been rocking with the boys for a very long time. More importantly, buckle up. Like it's going to be there's going to be some chaos. There's also going to be a lot of fun conversations to have around this program over the next couple of weeks and months. Appreciate you guys. Hey, let it fly in the comment section. More coaching candidates. We would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And I want to talk about this. We said this right when this news hit. One of the most important topics, like player retention. And again, to me, it starts with you want to sell a guy like Kalen DeBoer to come to Michigan. You are selling him on the ability to take over a roster that can win a lot of football games in 2026. And look, I think that's the case. When you have a quarterback like Bryce Underwood, running back like Jordan Marshall, with Savion Hyder coming in, wide receiver one in Andrew Marsh, who's only going to be a sophomore. You got guys like Blake Frazier, Andrew Babaloa, Jake Winery. You got so much young talent on the offensive line. I look at some of the most important positions that you need to get right if you want to go out and win a national championship. If you're a Michigan fan, you feel really good about some of the most important positions and how good we're going to be there over the next couple of years. Well, you have to make sure that those players are going to be on this roster in 2026 because that might be your biggest selling point. You want to go get Kalen DeBoer from Alabama, bring him to Michigan, who would be my number one choice here. You're selling him on, hey, you're going to run an offense with Bryce Underwood. You're going to have multiple blue chip tackles that have shown they're really good football players protecting him. You got two running backs in Jordan Marshall and Savion Hyder who are going to be studs. Wide receiver Andrew Marsh. You're selling him on all of that, right? How do you get that done? that's another storyline. And that's another storyline. Hey, like if you're Michigan, you want to move with this coaching search and get this one done so the new head coach can come in and do, I think you might say crisis management, and try to sit down with all of this young talent and say, hey, we want you here in Ann Arbor. I think another really important player here is probably Biff Poggi. Like this kid bleeds, and I shouldn't call him a kid. This guy bleeds for Michigan, man. There's not a lot of things that mean more to him than this Michigan football program. He feels really important. Like he's not, I don't think he's going to be the next head coach for Michigan in 2026. I would not advocate for that either. I would certainly advocate for him to be on the staff in 2026 and help settle the waters here. I mean, Biff Poggi right now getting really active, talking to these young players, talking about the guys who just signed their papers to Michigan and saying, hey, we're going to get this figured out, right? We're going to get this figured out. And I'll say this just from a personal opinion standpoint, nobody better for that job. I mean, you talk about a selfless guy that just wants what's best for Michigan. You're looking at him with Biff Poggi, right? You hope he's on staff in 2026, and he might be the most important player in all of this over the next couple of weeks as we navigate these waters. I mean, you think about staff retention. I'll say this, there's not a ton of members on this coaching staff that I would immediately bang the table. Hey, we got to hold on to, right? You know, if Kalen DeBoer takes this job, I'm not telling Kalen DeBoer, you have to keep Chip Lindsey on the staff. And that's not a shot at Chip Lindsey. I mean, the guys that come to mind, Tony Alford at running back, would really like to see him back at Michigan in 2026. I think Grant Newsome's done a really good job with the offensive line, but not necessarily a non-negotiable job. I mean, I don't, my personal take as a Michigan fan, there are not many staffers on Michigan that I am just going to bang the table to go out and keep. Because what it comes down to, you evaluate what we've seen from Sherrone Moore the first 2 years of him being a head coach. We ain't that close, man. Even with that 9-3 record, when you play teams that were either college football playoff teams or teams that were on the fringe, like a team like USC, we didn't look close to being a college football playoff team when we played some of the best teams across the country. We talked about the candidates that you make them say no, right? I think Cignetti comes to mind, and then I think Kalen DeBoer comes to mind. You could maybe even throw Lincoln Riley in there at USC, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, Coach Sark at Texas. Again, I would be surprised if Marcus Freeman leaves Notre Dame after what he has rolling there. I would probably be surprised if Coach Sark would leave Texas with what he's built there. I think you have to start from this lens, though, and it's got to be ultra aggressive. And number one, because look, this is one of the best jobs in the country. I firmly believe that. Look at who you're chasing. You're chasing Ryan Day at Ohio State. You're chasing Dan Lanning at Oregon. You are now chasing Curt Cignetti at Indiana. I mean, some of the 3 of the 5 best coaches in the sport are in the Big Ten. You have to try to keep up there. And let's just be honest, Sherrone Moore probably was not included in that conversation. If you are Michigan, the decision makers, you have to take some big swings first. Make those names say no. Sneaky good candidates. You know, the names that are not going to be plastered on the hot boards in the first row that I think could be quality additions. I mean, we didn't talk about this one yet. Like Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Like this is really young, energetic, offensive mind that's done some really good things at Arizona State, is one of the most respected coaches in the industry. What would he like with the resources, or what would he be like with the resources at a program like Michigan? That would excite you. Now, you talk about what I love most about Kenny Dillingham. I don't even know if it's like I love what he does on offense. There's no doubt about that. But what I love most about him is he just like that infectious energy around him. And in the NIL landscape, that matters a little bit. You know, being a, a coach that, you know, donors and boosters, they want to rally around and throw money at. I think Kenny Dillingham's one of those guys. I'll give you another one here, Jeff Brom at Louisville. Hey, this is not super sexy, right? What has been one of our biggest complaints as Michigan fans the last 2 years, especially under Sherrone Moore? Outcoached. Like from a schematic standpoint, do we look like the team that has the advantage from a play calling standpoint, from a game day standpoint? No, we don't, right? I don't think you can argue that. You could say Sherrone Moore was, a guy that builds good culture, although I'm not even sure if you can say that anymore. Which you could never say about Sherrone Moore is that he's going to outcoach the guy that's across the field from him. Jeff Brom, there are few coaches that would outcoach Jeff Brom. I would come up here and argue on it as a game day offensive game plan and play caller. There are not many better in the sport. You look at the ACC, there's not a coach that's won more football games the last 3 years in that conference than Jeff Brom. And he did it at Purdue too. And us Michigan fans, we know how damn hard it is to win at Purdue. You'll get best out of quarterbacks, right? You ain't no doubt about that. You will score points. The big question here with Jeff Brom is, can he recruit at the level Michigan would need to recruit at? Because you make no mistake about it. If you want to keep up with Oregon and keep up with Ohio State, you have to recruit the same caliber of athletes. We have never seen Jeff Brom do that. That doesn't necessarily mean he can. It means he's never been at a program where he's had the resources to do so. If you sit down with Jeff Brom and say, hey, what's it going to look like on the recruiting trail? If we give you these resources, do you think you can recruit consistently top 10 classes to Michigan? If the answer is yes, I think Jeff Brom would have a lot of success. And then the last one here is Jedd Fisch. And I'll say this about Jedd Fisch, man, growing on me. Really good ball coach. I don't think you can argue that. What he did at Arizona, now what he's doing at Washington. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Kalen DeBoer left those shelves empty when Jedd Fisch got to Washington. They were able to win some games in their first year in the Big Ten last year. This year they went 8-4. Look, for a majority part of that season, damn good football team. But here's the thing with Jedd Fisch. You look at what Jedd Fisch is doing on the recruiting trail, top 15 class in the country. Kalen DeBoer never sniffed that at Washington. That's like telling you, hey, Jedd Fisch can recruit at Washington. He's winning some recruiting battles against USC and against Oregon at Washington. What could he do at Michigan? Was a really good recruiter for Michigan when he was on staff. I think he's a really good football coach that knows how to develop young quarterbacks, which is certainly something we are looking for. There's a common theme here. Like I'm leaning into some coaches that can get the best out of quarterbacks. I think it's crucial in this day and age. Like, give me a coach that I can trust to maximize quarterback play. All three of these names can do that. I think Jedd Fisch has shown you he can recruit at the level necessary to win at Michigan. Those are some other names. Again, my first hire is Kalen DeBoer. I think Kalen DeBoer, if he loses that game against Oklahoma, that might be one of them. I'll say this, that Alabama going on the road to Norman, Oklahoma might be one of the most important games for the next 10 years of a Michigan football fan. Because if he loses that game, and he finishes the season, I believe that would be with a 9-4 record. I know what the Alabama fan base already thinks about Kalen DeBoer, at least a majority of them. They're still skeptical. And what Kalen DeBoer has done is, number one, he won at Washington. He's been winning at Alabama, and maybe not at the same clip of Nick Saban. Well, guess what? Nick Sabans don't grow on trees. Recruited the number 2 class in the country. And his second year at Alabama was top 5 his first year. He can recruit. He's a really good ball coach. And Kalen DeBoer is my first call. Jedd Fisch might be number 2, though. In terms of like realistic names, again, I'm calling everybody and making them say no to Michigan. Kalen DeBoer, Jedd Fisch are probably my 2 leaders in the clubhouse. I think Jeff Brom is an interesting candidate. Not necessarily sure if I'm sold on him. I'm very interested to see what the player movement looks like for Michigan. We've seen a couple of different examples. When Penn State fired James Franklin, that recruiting class fell apart, right? And I think the reason being a lot of those football players committed to James Franklin, not necessarily the program, not necessarily the logo. And then you look at Florida, and then you look at LSU, and they departed with both of their head coaches, but they didn't really lose anybody in the recruiting class. And so far, have not lost a ton of players in the transfer portal either. Why is that? I think a lot of those players, when they commit to Florida, when they commit to LSU, they commit to the program, they commit to the logo. Interested to see how it feels for Michigan. Like, a lot of these guys who are in this program or committed to this program just signed their papers. Did you commit to Sherrone Moore? Or did you commit to that Block M? That's going to be an interesting storyline to monitor. I think Michigan's got a chance to upgrade at head coach, right? My worry about Michigan over the next couple of years is not, are we going to get a bad head coach? I think Michigan's going to upgrade. What's the roster look like? That's the bigger storyline for me. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. We'll talk plenty about this over the next couple of weeks, couple of days. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.